Welcome back once again to the saga of the Yamaha Inviter water pump. This is part 3, and in this part we are going to reassemble the water pump. As you can see, we have the new parts on hand here. The only thing I'm having trouble finding is a cylinder head gasket. I'm afraid that may become unobtainium, so I'm hoping I can salvage the old one. Anyway, let's head out to the workshop and see what is going on.
As you can see, I've got all the parts in for this. I got a bunch of stuff stacked on this shaft right now just because it's so I don't lose it. The spacers are on there, the old seal, the new seal, it's all right there. The new bearings are here, and it's time to install them into the housing here, into the water pump housing, which of course, as you can see, I do have a brand new water pump housing for the Yamaha Inviter, and these should be fairly straightforward as far as going in. A couple of precautions to take when putting these in is when you do put them in, I'm going to try, I'm experimenting a little bit here, but you don't want to be pulling on the center of these bearings. What you want to do is push on the outside of them to get that into that bearing setting there. So I'm thinking that this washer is just big enough to go around that, as you can see. And it's also just enough that it'll fit through the bore of the water pump housing and not interfere. So my thought is, and I've got a couple of different ideas here. One idea involves a C-clamp and pressing the bearing in, and the other one I think is going to be more successful, is going to be actually in pulling the bearing in, and the way I'm going to accomplish such is by doing this, putting the bearing through like that, and as you can see, the washer is just right on the outside of it. Again, you don't want to be pulling on the inside of these bearings. So what I'm going to do, instead of using just one, I'm going to put 2 washers on here, just a little bit of extra support, just to make sure that I don't push it into that center part. We have to do this twice. Now this one needs to go way, way down in there. I don't know if the camera's showing it, but there's if you look at my finger in here, let's get a we'll get a pick out here and point it out to you. Down inside of there is the little ridge, and the bearing has to ride up against that. So the best way I can think of doing it is going to be to start it up like this. And I'm just going to ever so gently give it a couple little taps just to kind of get it started and to make sure that it's going to stay straight. So, plain old clay hammer. Give it a couple little hits. You want to make sure you get that as straight as you possibly can before you start pulling it in there, because if it's not straight when you pull it in there, it's going to bind up and you're not going to have a good day with this. So what I'm going to do, put the 2 washers on here, making sure that you're not off center or anything like that. And then on the bottom side, we'll do the same thing and put a whole stack of washers down in here, like such. And I'm going to actually use a wing nut on this. Shouldn't require a whole lot of force. I did spray a little bit of lubricant in there in the bearing housing, so it should just slide right in. So let's see how this works. As I'm turning on the, let me set this so that you guys can see what I'm doing on both sides here. Okay, turning it as I go in, and it is pulling the bearing in. Well, it was pulling the bearing in. Now it's kind of ran into a little stoppage here, but not too serious. And as you can see, the bearing is going in. And unfortunately, it looks like I've taken this about as far as I can go with it, because the bolt is actually turning with the thing here. So back it off just a little bit and see if that's going to help. And that is not going to help. So we're going to have to go to plan B. And plan B involves this 4-inch C-clamp. I've got it in there just far enough that it's sitting straight. Pull all this apparatus out of here. And here we go. Nice little chunk of wood to put down here. Set that on. So you don't want to clamp on this, because you're going to bust your housing all to pieces if you try to do it this way, and it's going to throw things off center. It's going to be cattywampus. It's not going to be a good day. Now the temptation would be, you would be tempted to do this. Don't do this. Don't do it that way. What you want to do, back this out a little bit more. And what I would like to do is find a bolt that just fits through the top of that. But this has a wide enough flange on it. I should be able to get away with just putting one washer there. Put that through there. And again, as you can see, it's against the outside of the bearing. It's not pushing on the inside. So we're going to take this C-clamp and open it up a little bit more. Hopefully it opens up wide enough to accommodate this little apparatus here. I'm basically turning the C-clamp into a press. Oh, plenty of room. Lots of room on there. And I'm trying to hold this so that you guys can see what I'm doing here. Get that as centered as you possibly can, and there we go. Now we just start pressing it in. Make sure that your washer is setting so it won't interfere, and in we go. I just broke my piece of wood, I think. It is working. As you can see, it is going down in farther, so this is going to be a little bit of a long, tedious process, so I'm going to continue pressing this in, and as soon as I get it the rest of the way home, I will bring you guys back and show you the results. Oh, hey guys, I didn't see you walk back in the room. All right, well, this is just about gone as far as it can go down in. I feel like it's bottomed out against the, yeah, we definitely bottomed out against something in there. So I'm going to take the clamp back out of here and see how we did. All right, we'll set that off to the side over there. And yeah, this is all that's left of the piece of wood. I could have chose a better piece of wood probably for that, but details. All right, well, it looks like the bearing is in there. If you look down inside of there, you can see the bearing is seated way down in there. And if you look on the other side, on the seal side, you can see that it is actually seated up against the groove in there. And there is a little bit of an airspace in there that's supposed to be there. So that is the way it's supposed to be. I put this impeller shaft in there and oh my. That's even better already than it was before. If you remember what it was like in the previous video, yes, there's fireworks going off in the neighborhood. All right, so I'm going to drop this spacer down onto there. Get this bearing on here. And I'm going to center it like that. And I'm going to do this a little bit differently this time, I think. I've got it all centered. I'm afraid of that. I'm afraid of that bushing coming out and coming loose in there. So I'm going to try giving this thing just a couple little love taps as squarely as I can to get it started, which I have, and I just knocked that little that centerpiece is going to be that's going to be a royal pain. But I'm going to go back to this system again and try doing it this way. And this one should pull in relatively easily. There we go. Now we can get that in there. And I'm going to double up on the washers down here like I did before. Where do you see where I put that wing nut? Oh, there it is. Thank you. Thanks for bringing that back to me. All right. So we look around on the bearing here and see that it's not quite perfectly centered, so I'm just going to give it a little love tap on this side. Now let's take a look in there. You can see if you, I don't think you can see it in the camera, but I don't want to tilt it too much. So that spacer is where it belongs. This goes through there. Now we're ready to draw the bearing in. Put the larger washer toward the flange, smaller washer facing out. Put the wing nut on, and we should be able to draw that in with a little bit of help from Mr. Hammer. And you can see it's starting to go in a little bit. There we go. Coming right in. And now we're stuck, so I'm going to try giving it a couple taps right in the middle of that carriage bolt. And the wing nut did loosen up on that. Let's try giving it, because the bolt is not turning with the nut at the moment. So it looks like we're drawing it in the way it needs to be drawn in. Let me just give it a couple more. That is definitely in where it belongs, where it needs to be. So let's take this off and take a look at our handiwork. Yep, it is right where it belongs. And if you look real closely, you can see there's a groove in there for a spring clip to go in there. It's just a little bit. Yeah, I think that's going to work. Let's put the impeller shaft in there once and see how that looks. Nice and solid. I like it. That gets the NJP stamp of approval. The bearings are now installed, and we are ready to put in the mechanical seal. Oh yes, and before I forget, let's make sure to put this ring clip in there. Spring clip, spring circlip, whatever you want to call it. It's one of those, I should have probably bought a couple extras of these because these like to go flying when you're working on them. Alright, so I've got the snap ring pliers going here, and we'll just drop that right in there, and that is probably about the easiest snap ring I think I've ever installed in my entire life. That's actually kind of scary. Look, it's seated in there perfectly. I've never had a snap ring installation go that easily before, ever. Oh, there's why. It's not all the way in. There, now it is. It's still. I'm amazed. I'm beyond amazed. Okay, well, there we go. All right, this is the old mechanical seal here, and this is the rest of it here. This is all separate in here. A little ceramic disc in there, and there's a rubber seal that goes around it. And this part here actually goes up against that ceramic part, and that's what seals your water pump from the outside world. This seal is basically destroyed just because of the way that it was running before. And I did get the entire new apparatus wherever I put that. There it is. So I've got the new seal, the new ceramic ring that goes in there, and of course the new part that goes into the housing. All of that. So what I want to do is take my little pick over here and pick this old seal out of here. This would probably be okay. It would probably work, but since I've got the new part, I might as well put it in anyway. So this is a little bit tedious, and yet there might be bloodshed here. So blood's good for ratings, right? Ooh, that was close. All right, as I pick away at that, there we go. The ceramic part of it is loose now. And just pull that up and off the shaft. There we go. And yes, that is actually ceramic. It's not plastic. That's a hard ceramic. Plastic would never survive in that environment. And let's just pick that out of there. There we go. I'd never be able to use that again. I just poked a hole in it. And as you can see, it's a little bit rough. So it's actually pretty clean in there. A little wipe down, and I think that'll be ready to go. Okay, this is the new seal. And I think I can actually get away with putting that on in one piece. Okay, down in there, press it into place. And it's as simple as that. Simple as that. It's in there. Looking good. See? Show you guys too. Alright, so again, what happens here is this part of the seal, right here, this little lip, this is actually a very hard piece of material here. This will ride up against this ceramic part, and that actually seals this side where the coolant is from this side where the bearings are. So what needs to happen here is we need to bring the housing back over. And this, as you can see, there's already a sealant applied to the outside of that seal there, so you can't, so there's no, so coolant can't get through there and get into the bearings and contaminate those. So what needs to happen is this needs to be pressed into place. And I think that's going to happen much the same way as we did with the bearings. I'm going to use this little installation device going the opposite direction this time. And I'm just kind of pushing down on it at the moment. As you can see, I'm pulling it down into place. And it is seated. Okay, there it is. The seal is now installed. Pop this out of here, get out of the way. I'd say that went in a little bit easier than the bearings did. Okay, so we've got the seal in place. So I've got some special marine coolant. Look, there's a snowmobile on there. Look, you can tell. So this is what I use in my my Indy 440, and I use it in the Yamaha. And I'm just going to put a little bit of that. Oh, well, that kind of went all over the place. There we go. Be a little sparing with it. I mean, don't get too carried away with it, but you definitely want to make sure that you get some on there. Make sure you're. It has lubricating qualities to it, and you slop a little bit around. Don't worry about that. That's just going to happen. All right, so that's on there, and easily slide that in there, and it does spin quite nicely. So I think we're just about ready to call this one complete. Pretty close anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and put the pulley back on it. Start with the inner sheave, which I just put on the wrong way, and I didn't put the little crush washer in there either. So that has to go in there first. Then we're going to put this on there, and remember, this is the inside one because it's rusty. So put the rusty one to the inside, and we're going to put these little spacers on here. Put that on, and let's use the new one. The old one was a 12 mil, this one's a 13 millimeter, so I'm not going to make it super tight. I'm just going to put it on there a little overhand tight at the moment. And there we go. Okay, water pump's ready to go. We'll put it on the machine tomorrow and see how it runs.